And I realized, as I look back at that day, I'll never forget it. I was at Mills College in the little room we were meeting in,
Mm-hmm.
and I pulled it back like tenfold, right? Like, we can just do it. We can do 100,000. I didn't know how I was going to do 1 million.
So I just want to do a timeout and do a redaction because I heard you say something, and I heard you say that you allowed their fear to pull you back, right?
Yeah.
And I know from my own experience, right? We got both inside of us, right? We got can do faith and we got can't do fear, right? And so it wasn't their fear,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They allowed you to take the focus off of your big goal, your faithful vision,
Yeah.
and put it on your own fear, because our own fear does not go anywhere. It just hangs around, smokes a cigarette, taps his foot, and I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the right opportune time to hit Ashanti, to hit Shawn.
Welcome to the Taking Off the Mask podcast. My name is Ashanti Branch, and I'm glad that you've joined us. Today's conversation is with Shawn Dove, the founder and director of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement, one of my mentors. I have been so glad to have this man as a man I can call or text or email just to ask a question about my journey in leadership. Today's conversation is different than some of our other podcasts. We didn't make a traditional mask like we normally make, but we're going to talk about our masks. He's going to tell some stories about growing up in New York in a time that's not like some people know New York today. He's going to help me process some thoughts about my work and the things that I have just seen in such a different way. I want to read one quote that he talks about today in today's episode. He says, inside of us, we have both the can-do faith and can't-do fear. And you'll hear him talk to me about a journey that I've taken in my leadership where I used to say, I let my team talk me out of a decision, where actually I've reframed it to being like, I allowed my fear to take me to a new decision. But just amazing to be able to be in this conversation with him. It's going to, hopefully you feel flow really smooth, and hopefully you learn something. He's going to give some nuggets in this conversation that I've written down and that I'm still writing and that I'm going to be sharing. But I really hope that you take what you hear today as a conversation between two men. Definitely, I look to him for a lot of advice, but he really affirms some of my work, which feels really good, and I didn't expect it, but also I'm thankful for it. I look forward to you being a part of this movement. Just a really important note, we just reached 50,000 masks, over 50,000, 50,710 to be exact. And I hope that you at some point get to make a mask. You can do that at www.100kmasks.com. And we look forward to you being a part of this journey with us with one picture and 6 words of self-reflection and connection. And listen to this conversation of me connecting to Shawn Dove. Thank you for listening. Well, thank you. I just want to say thank you for being on the show, and welcome to Taking Off the Mask. And so, yeah, we were kind of catching up before, and it started already happening without us even planning. So, yeah, you were just saying the mantra for this season.
Yeah, so the mantra for this year has been all is in divine order, right? And there have been some moments where God has said, well, do you believe that now? When things have not been going. So as I would have wanted them to be going. And the answer to that is yes. Gratitude, immense gratitude, because, look, we're among today the land of the living, right? And we all know someone in our circle that started 2020 and is no longer with us. for various reasons, right?
Yeah.
Certainly COVID-19, but just the natural order of things,
Yeah.
violence. And so I'm grateful, and I'm talking to and looking at, one of my favorite brothers on the planet. So, what more can I ask for, man?
Man, I appreciate that. And when you said that, actually, I was thinking, did I lose anyone else this year? And I realized everything that's been going on since March. Like, I lost my grandmother in January, and that was like super heavy. And then as I was finished that, then
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
world, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. There's a lot more happening this year, right? Outside of what's
So
happening.
exactly right. And I was listening to the sister Marshawn Evans on Friday. I participated in this African American leadership conference.
Okay.
His brother Willie Barney from Omaha,
Okay.
Nebraska. He puts that on every year. You two may have been in the same space together at Rumble.
Okay.
And she was the closing speaker. And she just talked about how, 2020 has
Hmm.
come to teach us the source of our hesitation.
Wow.
She went
Wow.
on and talked about how, in the midst of a pandemic, she gave birth to triplets, right?
Oh man.
And she said a lot of good stuff that I needed to hear. And she said one thing: when we believe,
Yeah.
we build, and when we doubt, we delay. And that's an affirmation of mine. Tomorrow's not guaranteed, so stop stalling on your calling and
Right.
just jump in. And sorry to hear about your grandmother,
Oh man.
Ashanti. And I can only say that I know that she was very proud and still is proud and shining down on her baby boy.
Yeah, man. I think it's one of those moments when it happened. I was at Stanford for a workshop. Like she had been at hospice, but when I got the call, I was like going across the bridge. You're heading from East Bay to
Mhm.
Stanford, right? And I got the call from my cousin saying, she just passed, right? And I was like, and I had that conflict in my heart, in my soul, like, should I turn back around and go back to her house, or go forward and push this presentation that I've been planning for
Mhm.
weeks, right? And it's like, I think there's these moments where you hear about people who have done amazing things, and they have to make hard decisions, right? I mean, that was a hard decision in my gut. Like, I should go there and just stand over the body, but I also felt like, what good am I gonna do there in the moment, right? Like,
Mhm.
I've already felt it. I've already said, saved my goodbyes, but also like, shouldn't you aren't you supposed to be there? Like, the pressure I think that I put on myself, what
Woo.
I think people think I should do. Like, what are they gonna say that I didn't go back and just stand there?
Wow, that's deep. Look, I walked down the aisle in my first marriage with that. Oh, this is what I'm supposed to do, as opposed to this is my heart's desire, right? And we are always faced with that, dichotomy, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And this has been a year for me where I've done some and continue to do some deep work around, um, deriving intrinsic value and intrinsic self-worth as opposed to extrinsic value and people pleasing and what others want me to do, and to stop performing and just be, man. And it is it's freeing, it's liberating. It's not easy because
yeah.
we have been scripted all of our lives to do the latter, right? And
Right.
to derive the external, because as my therapist shares with me, that voice, that ego is trying to protect you from something, right? And it's trying to create some kind of safe space for you. And it's
Yeah.
okay for you to talk you know, what are you trying to protect me from, right? I'm okay. And I said to her, I said, hold up, I came to you to stop talking to myself. If you're telling me to talk to myself, this is, like I said, all in divine order that we're talking today at this moment. And you were sharing about your, you know, your grandmother, right? And it's easy for me to say from my vantage point. Actually, you didn't tell me the decision. I think you went ahead and did the workshop, right?
I did the workshop, yeah.
From my vantage point, I would say I think you did the right thing, but based on what we just talked about, it don't matter what I say, right? It's like, how does Ashanti feel about this?
Yeah.
You know, I started 2020, my wife Desiree and I in Ghana.
Wow.
My first trip to Africa.
Nice.
In partnership with the Kojo Family Foundation and the Essence Full Circle Festival, the year of the return, right? And I have this picture in my phone. Actually, I posted it earlier this week in Instagram. It was the first sunrise of the new year for me.
Nice.
And it was part of a sunrise breakfast on the beach in Ghana, right? And as you know, talk about, you know, terminology with sunset and, you know, the campaign for Black male achievement at the end of this year. Yeah. And little did I know, you know, that sunrise was signaling, you know, who knew what 2020 at that point, what was in store. And as the sun is setting on one side of the world, it's rising on the other, right? Yeah. So that's us. Just a couple things I want to say with context. I haven't even given you a chance to ask a question. So that context, right? And then after, so Ghana was beautiful, right? And it was just spiritual, enlightening, like, wow, finally made it. And I thank Boris Kojo because Desiree and I had a lunch meeting with him and his wife, Nicole, in Harlem at the Red Rooster in September. Nice. And we were having a conversation, and he asked if I had ever been to Africa. And I said, well, it's on my bucket list, 2020. I'm going to do it in 2020. And he looked across the table at me and he said, no, you're going this year. You're coming with us for the Essence Full Circle Festival, the year of the return, right? And so if I would have waited to 2020, right, the year of the pandemic, right, that would not have happened, right? So there's so much to unpack, but there's a couple of things I just want to share with just this year and this moment that we're in, I'm in. You know, one of the powerful stories while I was in Ghana was hearing about the beautiful coastline and the property on the coastline. Have you been to Ghana?
No, not yet. Only Lagos.
Being on the coastline. And so to me, the beach is beautiful, the waves, but the history of the water over the generations is that our ancestors left the door of no return. The water meant the coming of slave ships and the leaving of family and legacy. And the buildings on the shoreline, all of the doors face away from the water. And you would think, okay, I got this coastline property. I would want to open the door and see the beachfront, right? Yeah. To see the waterfront. And part of the festival was around the economic power and collective economics that resides in the diaspora in Ghana and on that land. And the metaphor for me with the development that has happened, and the new development is, how do we do a 180 and face our fears, right? And how do we do a 180 and face our generational fear and generational grief? And after Ghana, I do this annual retreat with a bunch of Black folks that I love, many of whom you may know, Tanya Allen, Travian Shorters, it's called SOAR, a bunch of other folks. And we were in Belize this year.
Nice.
And it was beautiful, right? First week of January. And the second night while I was in Belize, and I don't know if you've ever had this experience when you have a dream and you fall into this paralysis in your dream and you can't move or breathe.
I sleep really deep and I do dream a lot. So I think, I don't know if I've ever been to a place where I was like paralyzed, but I've been in a place where I'm like, is this really, like, I think maybe I have. I got to think about it. Like when people describe it, I'm like I'll be in a dream and I'll be just like, whoa, like what? Like I'm looking around in the dream, like, but I don't know if I'm like, my brain saying to wake up, you know? But
so you could at least, I could be a good guest and allow you to ask your first question. So this was the second night, and this used to happen to me as a kid, in the dream, and I couldn't move, right? And the only way as a kid that I can wake up was if I breathed through my nose. Don't ask why, but anyway, so I was having this dream the second night in Belize. And in the dream, I was in my childhood youth program as an adolescent called the Dome Project on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, New York. And then the dream switched and I was in Times Square, 42nd Street. And not the 42nd Street of today. This is like 1977, 42nd. This is Triple X, 42nd Street. And then there was these little, you may recall Pac-Man, that game, right? And Pac-Man, Mrs. Pac-Man, these little, gremlin-like things that grabbed me and were pulling me down the street.
Wow.
And it was at that point, I was in this paralysis. I couldn't breathe. And I evidently was sleeping on my right side. And I just started fighting. Because in my dream, I said, if I don't fight, I know I'm going to die. And so I started fighting, and I didn't realize that I was swinging in the reel because my wife Desiree woke up and she shook me and she was like, what's going on? And I woke up and I knew at that moment that if I didn't fight, because I heard a few stories in 2019 of Black men dying in their sleep. And on the trip in Ghana, we were on the trip. I don't know if the name Bernard, were you in California? You know Bernard Tyson, the former CEO of Kaiser Permanente.
Yes.
Kaiser. And at 60, he died in his sleep. And his wife, his widow, was in Africa on this trip.
Wow.
And in fact, was the first person Desiree and I connected when we got there and was talking to in the lobby. And she was in mourning still, right? And I know, so when I say I'm grateful to be alive, I know in that moment, and I wrote in my journal that, I made a decision to fight, right? I've been in some spaces in my lifetime, probably in that dream, I'd have been like, just take me, Lord, I'm done. I'm done. It's a wrap. Thank you. So just grateful to be here and just want to let you know how proud I am of you and how much I love you. And, while we don't speak and see each other often, the connection is always there, brother.
Man, I appreciate that very much. And I want you to know that this is not really an interview. This is a conversation. And so it's actually exactly what was supposed to happen in our opportunity to just start connecting. Because one of the things that with our work, and thank you for the words, because I was thinking, am I going to tell him, every time I see you with your sons, Like I've seen you. I mean, this is like a second year since the first inaugural, building beloved community fellowship. And I remember just seeing you with them and just seeing that love. I grew up without a father, so like that. When I see it, I feel it. It was something I wish I could sometimes turn off because I always seem to feel it. Right? I can, and so. Yeah, so I appreciate those words because I think when I see you with them, I always just am just overjoyed, like kind of like a place of like, man, I wish I had that, right? Who knows if my father would have been as holding that space like I see you hold for them, but I always wonder. I always wonder and trust that he would have, right? But he was taken before I was born. So I want to just appreciate you for all that you have done, and I think even our first meeting, the first time I met you was at the when you came to the Bay Area at the San Francisco Foundation for the first report. I forgot the name of the
Quantifying hope.
Quantifying Hope. That one, that was the first time, and then I was just in awe in the audience, and I was like, I'm not going to go up and say anything. And then I remember the second year that the second report came out. I said, it's been a year. Like I should have said something last year. I didn't say. I said I'm gonna go up and say hello, and I came up to you and you said email me, and that's how it all started. Like it was just me breaking past my fear of like just, and so I'm glad that it's a wake up call to myself because a lot of things hold me back by me kind of sometimes being afraid.
Woo. Yes. So that's interesting because the moment of connection that I remember, right? So I don't even remember the San Francisco connections, right? I remember us in the airport in Greensboro, North Carolina, after the inaugural Building Beloved Community Leadership Fellowship. Our few days down there, and us just spending some time as we were waiting for our flights, connecting and introducing the vision of the mask and beyond the mask and a million masks.
Yeah.
See, I multiplied it, right? I think.
Yeah, no, and it's actually that's where it's at right now. It's called the Million Mask Movement, right there. Well, that shirt is antique now, even though it says Million Mask Movement. People couldn't read it. They were like, I think in that work we talk about, right? You try something and you realize, oh, I gave it my best, right? I thought it was an innovative idea, and people were like, why do you have a commas in the middle of a word? I'm like, oh, it's not clear. It's not clear what I was trying to do, right? But yeah, it's a million now. We have collected about 50,000 masks from 18 countries, and the goal is a million. The goal is like, I feel like we're on a really important, in that moment where you're like, something's happening. Like the wheels have been turning. I've been pushing the wheels, but then sometimes you feel like the wheels are kind of like moving and you're not doing all the pushing. Like there's some other things kind of stirring. That's where it's starting to feel. It still feels, it's still rough, right? We're a small nonprofit, but that moment where you start saying, well, stuff is happening and I didn't do it. So then you're like,
woo,
man.
Yeah. So now I just want to clarify because the original target, it wasn't a million in the beginning,
100,000.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't want that to be lost for listeners, watchers, however this is being viewers being distributed. That the original goal was a 100,000 goal, right?
Yeah.
Which is big in itself, and you stepped into that. Faced the fear and stepped into it and just kept walking and walking in your gift and showing up, and you sized up. And it's funny, I was just talking about the Marshawn Evans. She said something that was, she was talking about her triplets and growing into larger diapers. And she said, you have to continuously ask yourself, where in your life is it time for you to size up?
Ooh.
And you went from 100,000 goal to a million, and what it is, and our brother Richard Taylor, we talk about this a lot. It's the process, between the dream and set lofty goals, not so much because of what will happen if and when you achieve them,
Right.
but what happens along the way, right?
Yeah.
And so you just told me some serendipitous stuff is happening, and God, the universe, the spirit just said, "Oh, he's serious. He's supersized. He 10x.
Oh man.
He's
Well,
10x."
well, you running an organization. I want to tell you the story actually how it happened, because you probably have experienced this, and I would love to. Did you have a chance to make a mask? Did you have a chance to make one?
Wow. So I made one
Long time ago. So
long time ago.
Part of our show, what we're going to do is you and I are going to just talk about our masks together.
Okay.
But I'm going to tell you this story because it was actually really interesting when you said we sized up. So I had the idea. I mean, the journey was really wild, but I'll start with this. The people saw the documentary. They said, the documentary came out when we did the activity the first time. I got a call from some educator around the country who saw the documentary, tried to do the activity with their students, made the room very unsafe, because we're asking people to share important things about themselves, sometimes scary things. And then they called me or emailed me and said, your activity doesn't work. And I'm like, what activity are you talking about? And like, the one you did in the documentary, I did it with my students and it made the classroom very unsafe. And I'm like, I didn't teach anybody how to do that. Like, the clip was only 3 minutes. We were in the room for over an hour and a half, and I've been working with these young men for weeks and months. And in my mind, I'm like, how are you blaming me? Like, the fact that you tried to take something that you saw in 3 minutes and translate it to some humans in your classroom, like, and then my gut was like, but if people can blame me for anything.
Yes.
And something said to me, you need to,
people will.
And they will. Something to me said, you got to teach people how to do it. Teach them how to do it the right way. If they're going to try and take this 3 minutes, they want to do it. Teach them how to do it. And then I had a fear like, well, how are we going to make money off of this? And how are we going to like grow this and scale this? And one of my mentors says, what do you want to have? Do you want to have the impact or you want to make money? I said, well, I'm running an organization. We need to survive. He said, do you want to have impact or you want to make money? I said, I want to have impact. He said, then you got to give it away. Yes. And so we started giving it away. And I said, well, if we're going to create these cards and do this, we got to at least put a goal on it. So I went to my team first before the campaign started with this idea of the Million Mask Movement. So I was ready. I had it in my brain. I prepared my speech. This is what we're going to do. I wrote it on the board. It was like MMM. And I was like, look at that. And everybody's like, how are we going to collect 1 million masks? And I'm like, but look, it's Million Mask Movement. Can't you see it? Can't you feel it? Don't you? And I literally, yeah, it was. I had it off, but you know what I did? I pulled back. So when you said you got to dream big, I actually was starting off dreaming big, and I take the full blame for it. I allowed their fear to cause me to say, well, then what else can we name it? And then we started with 100,000. And I really, as I look back at that day, I'll never forget it. I was at Mills College in the little room we were meeting in, and I pulled it back like tenfold, right? Like, we can do 100,000. I didn't know how I was going to do 1 million.
So I just want to do a timeout and do a redaction because I heard you say something, and I heard you say that you allowed their fear to pull you back, right?
Yeah.
And I know from my own experience, right? We got both inside of us, right? We got can-do faith and we got can't-do fear, right? And so it wasn't their fear, right?
Yeah.
They allowed you to take the focus off of your big goal, your faithful vision, and put it on your own fear, because our own fear does not go anywhere. It just hangs around, smokes a cigarette, taps his foot, and I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the right opportune time to hit Ashanti, to hit Shawn. Let me tell you something, man, and then we'll get to the mask. And the power of, and I've seen you do your workshop on on a live on a few occasions. And in this work that we are doing, it is not just for now. This is a healing work.
Yeah.
It's generational work.
Yeah.
I've done over the last year some deep excavation around impostor syndrome.
Yeah.
Deep excavation around the narratives that I've told myself and the stories I've told myself, and particularly around one story. And I was 9 years old. Yeah. And during the week, I lived with my godmother in Harlem on 119th Street and Lenox Avenue. On the weekends, I lived with my mom, right? And my godmother was a classic, big mama, took care of a whole bunch of other kids. And this was the first day that I was traveling the New York City subways by myself, right?
Okay, yeah.
And my godmother, she ran numbers with Nicky Barnes's father, Roy Barnes, right? And so I know you're on the West Coast. I don't know if the name Nicky Barnes means anything to you, but he's a legendary drug dealer, right?
Okay, okay.
Father, right? But you know what running numbers is, right?
It's like lottery?
Yeah. So it was the Black community's cottage industry running numbers, right? Okay. So it's like the lottery, right? So and actually this was her son-in-law, who was a hustler. He saw fit. His name was DeWitt Thompson. He saw fit to give me and Michael King fur coats for Christmas of 1971. Michael King was about 2 years older than me. I was 9. He was around 11. He was being raised by a single mom like I was. And so Lel was also taking care of him, right? And that was my godmother. And so on this weekend, I think it was a Sunday after that Christmas, I was traveling from the Bronx to Harlem, supposed to pick up something from my godmother, and it was coming back. And I remember coming back, my mother was going to take me to this James Bond movie, Diamonds Are Forever, right? I'm going there, right?
Yeah.
And so long story short, it's on the way back, instead of getting on the uptown side to go home, I got on the downtown side. I was expecting to see 125th Street. That's what I was programmed to see.
Yeah.
I saw 110th Street, foreign territory. I froze, could have gotten off the train and just walked across the platform and got on the uptown side, right?
Yeah.
So I won't go into the whole story. Doors closed, wound up, the doors next open on 96th Street, and it seemed like an eternity from 110th Street to 96th Street. Again, I could have asked for help. All I had to do was go on to the other side, to the uptown side, but I got out and said, 96th Street, I can walk to 116th Street. I didn't realize I was on Broadway, not on Lenox Avenue, and wind up walking back to my starting point. While I was waiting on the platform for my original starting point, this is 1971, Harlem, heroin, reign supreme. This guy started talking to me, and long story short, convinced me I was on the wrong train, and it became an abduction story, right?
Wow.
Which I, survived, all right? And for most of my life, almost 50 years, that was my Harlem badge of honor story, my resiliency story. That was my UCLA story, the university on the corner of Lenox Avenue, right? I would tell it to the kids around the table. And it wasn't until last year, doing some work, and also writing my book. I'm coming out with a book in January, and dealing with that story in the book that I had to realize, hold up, Shawn, that shit wasn't your badge of honor. That was trauma.
Yeah.
That was a traumatic event. You could have gotten killed. And, you know, I was in school the next day. And I remember my fourth grade little girlfriend, Gwen Smoke, or ex-girlfriend, I guess at the time. She was it was a kidnap. You know, Shawn got kidnapped, right? And she was like, I don't know who would have kidnapped you. You're not worth anything. And so just kept it, no counseling or anything.
Yeah.
And in therapy, realizing how this traumatic event impacted or how I showed up today.
Yeah.
Lack of trust of others, lack of trust of myself, taking on, oh, I can prove I can handle responsibility. And I was 9 years old. Yeah. This wasn't your fault, Shawn. You know, and I remember wanting to prove, right?
Yeah.
Wanting to prove that I can travel the trains by myself.
That's right. That's
and
right.
So continuing to unpack that story. And I say, and this is for someone that, you know, may be listening, and we all have stories like this, right? That said, my therapist, I said, do I still got to keep talking? You know, I'm talking about this. She says, no. She says, this is your self-care. You keep bringing it up, and there's a lot to, so repetition creates the reordering, right?
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to lift that up because I'm finding at 58 years old, newfound freedom around a narrative, a traumatic experience that I shifted to work for, and, you know, not hold the adults accountable in my life, right?
Yeah.
Who puts a 9-year-old on New York City trains with the fur coat? And unpacking how I respond to both attracting and repelling resources.
Yeah.
You know, this is a real fur, you know, and so all of that, man. So, so this, I say all that to say is that the work, to bring it back to you, right, and to us, this is healing work, right?
Yeah.
And we as Black folks, we are grieving. We are not just grieving the grandmother we lost in January.
Yeah.
We are grieving the great grandmother that was ripped from her children, was raped, and our great grandfather could not do anything, fear for his life, right? So this generational grieving that I do think individuals like you and I are playing our role as we heal ourselves.
Yeah.
We help to heal others.
Man, you went there, and I think that exactly where those stories, right, when our childhood. I think Jerry Colonna, when he talks about the subroutines, right, the things that we did as children to survive, may have been healthy or not, but we did the best we could to survive to be this age. They can be replaying in the background, right? And that's that quote. That's quote. So until we make the unconscious conscious, right, then it will rule our life, and we'll call it fate. And how often I see for myself, like, oh yeah, that fear of failure, that's the part of my mask. The fear of failure makes me work like hours and hours and like into the night, trying to borrow hours from tomorrow and today. And then I wake up the next day exhausted, like, man, well, yeah, you ain't slept. You should be exhausted, right? But thinking that I guess I'm not enough to do this. Like all the stories, right? Why is our organization not big enough? Bigger is it? I've been working so hard, and all the stories I tell myself is usually those. When you said that their fear, like, it wasn't their fear, it was mine. It was resonating so true. Like the surface was like, oh, they're nervous. Okay, I'll pull back. I know that I don't know a million people. Mm-hmm. I know that I had no idea how I was going to do it. And so it was easy to be like, I mean, I've said no to stuff before that they wanted to change. I've said, no, we're not changing that. We're going to do it my way, because I was more convinced, right? But when you get one of those things, you're like, let me throw me this dream out there. It's easy to be like, all right, well, and you're right. It was my fear. And it still when we revamped it, I felt the fear too, still mine, you know.
And that's the thing about it, because the duality and the dissonance of life,
yeah,
is that there is the two mass, right?
right.
There are always the two. This is just my interpretation. I'm not saying this is how you teach it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the mask that we show, and the mask behind the mask.
That's right.
And if we're not doing the necessary work, right, the debilitating, unhealthy mask will show its face more than necessary. And I think a blessing of the pandemic is that it has helped to demystify to a greater degree, especially in our community, and even more so with Black men, that it is okay to get vulnerable, to say, I need help, to drop the mask. No, I don't have everything together, right? My mask that I would want you to see is, Shawn Dove, the iconic leader, and I got it all together. On the other side is the fearful imposter syndrome, and awareness and self and what you are doing. You are opening doors and unlocking doors and consciousness, right? Because self-awareness is a superpower. Right. And what Jerry talks about, those conscious stuff that drives. And actually I had a call with him, was it last week or the week before? And we were talking about how I was sharing how so last Friday was my birthday. I was 58 years old. Right?
Congratulations. Happy birthday, brother.
And on one hand, I was saying that, when I was a kid, I thought that 58, I'd be shopping for my rocking chair and I'd be old and cruise control. And I feel like I'm just getting started.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I'm like, God, I thought I used to be a child prodigy, and I'm 58 now. And he had shared a poem about just, welcoming the wilderness of elderhood, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much that, see, this is what you do to me, right? Ashanti, all we got to do is show up in the same space, and like we're off. And I heard something last year. This brother Melvin Miller talked during a retreat. He shared, you have nothing to prove, only gifts to share, right?
Man.
And I got to remind myself of that daily.
You have nothing to prove, only gifts to share.
Yeah,
man. I think about that quote in a way where I wish that somebody had taught me that when I was younger. I wish that it was this idea that you're not needing to prove stuff. You just need to share your gifts. Because when you can get to that place, I believe that it takes a lot of pressure off of trying to, what I'm doing has to be seen by certain people in so many ways, right? Like I started off as an engineer. I wanted to be rich. Mm-hmm. But when people in college were like, you should be a teacher. Anytime there was like some tour going on at Cal Poly, like they'd be like, Shanti, can you do a tour? I'm like, yeah, of course. Like anytime a high school came on campus, I was like, send me. I was in the multicultural center all the time. Hey, they got a group of students that need a tour. I got it. Cause I wanted to connect with them. But I was like, dude, you should be a teacher. And I felt insulted. I felt insulted that they would say that me as an engineering student should be a teacher, because I wanted to be rich. I wanted to make a lot of money, and teachers, from my experience, didn't make money. And I already did my poor time on earth. You know what I'm saying? I already did my poor years. It's time for me I have a choice in this matter. And I think teaching was waiting. And like you said, it was, the fear was waiting, but also teaching was waiting to be like, he's not ready yet. But it's coming.
Do good and do well at the same time.
That's right.
Do good and do well.
That's right.
At the same time. And, one of the things, that's why it's important. Longevity is important, right? That, I thank God that I got to be 58, right? Because so much awareness and revelations have come, just recently, right? And when I was younger, I thought, 24 was my magic number. When I thought I was going to be rich and everything would be like in place. And at 24 was my life began to unravel, right? And one of the things that I have learned to, submission mantra, right? I have to remind myself is that comparisons are a calling killer.
Ooh-wee.
Right? Particularly in the, let you and I, we're, we're leaders and we, my organization is sunsetting, right? But, you compare with other organizations, what other folks are doing. And if you start comparing, become a call, it's a calling killer.
Right.
And, with people, right? In good ways. I think for me, Ashanti, one of the, and you just have this quality and gift about you that, you're a tour guide, right? As you were on campus, you were taught, you guide people to themselves. You guide people to places of vulnerability that have been calling them, right? And I say one of the things that I had to come to terms with was that, Shawn, God created you with unique gifts to be who you are. He didn't create you to be a carbon copy of your mentor who had done some great things for you. You've done some great work together, and it's time for you to, it ain't him. I can't blame it on him, right? We've even had this conversation. He's like, you serve love, go do you, right? And it took me a number of years to accept, Shawn, no, you weren't created to be the next Jeff Canada, right? You were created to uniquely be the only person you can be. There's a saying, be yourself because everybody else is taken. And so this is the kind of conversations, right? And you said something about you wish you were taught this as you were younger. This wasn't in the ether, these types of healing conversations, especially with men. And our macho masculine mass, right? I couldn't tell you that I was scared.
Right.
I couldn't tell you that I felt vulnerable, that I was trying to, be like someone else. And that trust you enough to share a piece of me that was wounded and hurting. And, I just celebrated 31 years clean from drinking and drugging, right? And one of the, slogans in Narcotics Anonymous is that you are only as sick as your secrets.
Ooh-wee.
The ability for us to feel safe. Love, safety, and belonging, right? To feel safe enough to share that secret, right?
Man.
And, as pain lessened, right? Pain shared is pain lessened. And so we're blessed as Black men to be in this generation. And I'm gonna one quick story. And so my late father-in-law and my biological father, whom I did not grow up with, right? Never woke up one day saying, good morning, Dad. And, we developed a relationship later on in life. He and my mother were never married. He eventually married and started another family, but left that family. I had separate conversations back in 2003, 2004 with my father-in-law and my biological father. And they were telling me the story of when they left their families. And they both eerily used the same phrase and terminology. What they said was separate comment. It was deep. Right? They said they felt the walls were closing in on them, and they left.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, they both. And so that generation, you know, the generation, they couldn't come and say, yo, let me call Ashanti and tell Ashanti, yo, the walls are closing in, crying, I can cry with you. They had to feel like they had to white knuckle it. Yeah. And I had to say, well, Shawn, how many times have you felt the walls were closing in on you?
Yeah.
But you have different tools. You have a different support network. Right. Our brother Jason Wilson has written a book, Cry Like a Man. And so you weren't taught what you mentioned as a child because it just wasn't in our, especially, you know, Black folks, right? You know, dirty laundry.
Yeah.
You know, stop crying.
What happens in this house stays in this house.
Stop crying. Be a man. I'm 8 years old.
That's right. That's right.
I'm 8 years old. Oh, this shit hurts. I scraped my knee. I'm crying.
Yeah. Yeah. Walk it off. Walk it off.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is exactly that thing, right? And I think we had our young men in our social emotional leadership class. They were reading this as a book club. It was our first book club ever and ever forward, and it has been really powerful. They this idea of like learning through somebody else's story, somebody talking about their pain and their hurt and their heartbreak and their all the stuff that we don't often get to talk about. And I think that was really beautiful when you talked about like those generations thought, well, the walls are closing in, I better get out and go figure it out, and not ever believing in you. And I wonder, well, I guess I probably need to interviews and ask some elders those questions. Like, so how did you deal with it? And I think some of them just say, I didn't have any other option. There wasn't like there was like, you can do it this way or do it that way. It was like, you better just get busy.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, the father stayed, but, you know, there was drugs, there was alcohol, there was domestic violence, there was, but I do think that is because there are healthy examples, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I do think we've lost the whole griot storytelling lineage in our families and being able to tell those stories like, well, how did you do that, right?
That's right.
We clearly come from a people that know how to survive and thrive, to take adversity and turn it into an advantage. And there are so many lessons. And I saw you hold up Brother Jason's book. In 2021, I want you to make sure that the book that Nick Childs and I are dropping in January becomes part of your book club.
Absolutely.
I Too Am America, on loving and leading Black boys in America. And actually, you may know from Oakland, we weave in the stories of two young men, one from Oakland and one from Detroit. But you know Romero Wesson from Oakland.
The name sounds familiar. I'm not sure why.
Kingmakers of Oakland and
He
has his own ministry, A Chosen Generation, and so he's right. You know, he's right there in your outdoor connection. He's been at Rumble, so and it's equal parts manuscript, historical account of CBMA,
excellent,
and manifesto. Where do we go from here? And that we had to rewrite, reframe that final "where do we go from here" chapter, because when we finished at the end of last year, you know, I had this vision of the Corporation for Black Male Achievement, an endowed philanthropic social enterprise, and that dream is still there, but not just in the current entity, right? That was how the book ended, right?
Yeah.
The book didn't end like, okay, we're sunsetting, right?
Right.
2020 came, we are sunsetting, and it was an opportunity for the book to really elevate the ethos of CBMA. And so it's a compilation of many manifestos of leaders in the field. And now I'm feeling guilty. Did I invite you and you not respond, or did I not invite you to contribute a mini manifesto? I'm hoping it's the former.
Yeah. I don't remember. I definitely, anytime you email me, I think I replied to one. I always reply to this stuff. So I trust that whatever was supposed to happen is happening.
All in the divine order.
You better believe it. Yeah.
Part of what I Too Am America will be, so we're going to incorporate Black Achievement.
Awesome.
Right? LLC, we're self-publishing it, but it's also going to provide a platform for others to tell their I Too Am America story, right? And so this is what I've been doing it, right? So I've been in the shallow end, I've been doing it, and this is what I've been called to do.
Yeah.
And people have been asking me when I made the decision, we made the decision. Actually, I was like, we were looking at a few things. We're sunsetting. It was an activation. Yeah. People have been asking, well, what's next? What's next?
Right.
I said, you know what? I'm focusing on who's next more than what's next.
Yeah.
Who do I have to be?
That's right.
How do I have to show up in what I, am calling my third act? So I've been blessed with an intermission season. Right?
Yeah.
My second and third acts, right? And so excited, right? And excited about the work that we're going to continue to do together.
Yes.
And, so yes.
Well, I'm excited. And I think, thank you for weaving in the math. You weaved it in there and talking about it. And I appreciate that. And I think, one of I told people this is not an interview, it's a conversation. And the way the mask comes together is opportunity for us both to share about the fears, the challenges. Like sometimes the mask weaves in the conversation. And it's good to have somebody, a brother that you can go to and say, can we just talk about, I think one time I was dealing with some leadership challenges and I remember feeling like betrayed by somebody on the team. And I remember I didn't want to bother you. Like I really didn't want to bother you. And I was like, here's a quote I heard recently. It said, it's really hard to be fully loved unless you're fully known. And the reason it resonated is because there's very few places that I feel, and I've been saying this lately, that I think I'm fully known. And so me trying to who do I talk to? I got all these people who I know, but I don't want to bother them because they're busy. And something just said, text him. And I literally sent you that text and I was like, and you responded, right? Like it's the fears. Like it's fear gets in the way of getting the help we need when we need it because we tell ourselves a story that person's too busy to have time for my little problem over here with this small nonprofit in Oakland, California, right? And I think that, yeah.
And I'm kind of I like doing that, right? So only because, we are kindred brothers, right?
Yeah.
Because I've been in that scenario. Yeah. And when I have said, that person's too busy, that person doesn't have time for me. Yeah. What I'm really saying to myself is, Shawn, you're not worth that person's time. Who are you to be calling and asking? You're not, you're not worth it, right? And that narrative, right? That because the mass, has a narrative, right?
That's right. That's right.
And the challenge for you and I, brothers like us, people like us who are in some ways in the public eye, we're leading movements, movement making, community building. With that comes an image. Yeah. And our ability to get vulnerable and say, guess what? I do not have all my shit together. Yeah. Right? Yeah, you saw that Instagram post, but I didn't post when I was in the fetal position crying, right? I didn't post that, right? When I was in the fetal position, it might have been the same weekend.
Oh.
I didn't post that image of vulnerability, right? So don't just look at that.
Yeah.
And the beauty of what we have now is that we can say to each other, see you, I know you, I love you.
Yeah.
There's no issues or what you mean you love me? In my lifetime, you could not say that to, when I was coming up, right?
Yeah.
I had to leave my community and my homeboys when I transferred to a new school for 11th grade. My first 2 years, I went to Brooklyn Tech. Second 2 years, I got a scholarship to this prep school. And I was trying new things, and I was like, oh, let me take this poetry class. Now, this was, I think, Rapper's Delight just came out, right? This was the fall of 1978, right? I could not let my homeboys know that I was taking a poetry class.
Right.
Because I would have been seen as soft.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of other stuff that goes with it.
Yeah.
And because I was led and took that risk, I was able to discover that I was a poet and I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it tapped into, and poetry and writing helped save my life, right? But I had to, balance those two worlds. And I remember, and as I tell my story, not really fitting into this preppy environment.
Yeah.
Right? Then going back home, and my friends is like, "Oh, you hanging out with those white boys up there wearing khakis," and the dissonance of that, and not having a way to process all of that, right? So I'm just grateful for what you've created.
Yeah.
You're a young man. You may not have had it.
Yeah.
When you were younger, but you are delivering it. You are making sure that the Ashantis, the younger Ashantis, have it.
Thank you, man. Something just happened here in my office. I mean, it's a wild place, right? So somebody just walked in. I'm like,
I thought you were trying to blink with your eyes that there was a hostage.
Well, I was feeling like I was like, oh, I haven't had this happen before. Excuse me, sir. I need you to step outside. Yeah, can you go back across the street, please? I'll take care of her, but you can go back across the street. Thank you. See you. Take care. Hi, you looking for Candango? Candango is in la oficina aquí atrás. Hay un toque. Oye, can you go back across the street, please? Yeah. No molestas a la señora. Estoy diciendo a él, no te molestas. Oye, no molestes a la señora. Déjale pasar.
Promise me you won't edit that out of right? Promise me you won't, because that's the work. That's the work right there. And I didn't know you were bilingual like that. I didn't know you were bilingual like that. So I don't know what you said, right? But
oh man, thank you.
From your big brother.
Thank you, brother. Okay. All right, we're gonna leave it. It'll probably be the intro. It'll be like, this is what happened at the end. Oh man, I so appreciate you, brother. So more than I even have words to tell you, but I want to thank you. I want to thank you for not only just taking time out of your schedule, but just for letting me send you those texts and for answering and for responding, and and just so I want you to know that when you stop me, like, I think you're right. The mask has its mask. My mind tells me this. That person is busy. I don't want to talk about the fact that sometimes I don't feel worthy in that way. And I think those are places I'm really breaking past, and you helping me with that also is, I've been trying to write this book too. And I tell myself this fear of writing. I don't think I'm a good writer, right? I think all the stuff that just keeps, like, the lessons you keep learning.
The stories we tell ourselves, right? And so I love you, brother.
Love you too, my man.
I will always have time for you. It may not be when exactly you are requesting it, because if you are like me,
Yep.
We got to get better with saying no.
Oh man, oh
Right?
man, oh man.
Not right now.
That's right.
But I'm here for you. I have your back, and I know
Thank
that
you.
It's the same. And I'm just like so excited about how you are blossoming.
Thank you, brother.
How you are sharing your gifts. How you are teaching.
Yeah.
You are a master teacher.
Thank you.
And you're healing, man. You're healing. I've seen it and have experienced it firsthand.
Well, man, I tell you, we look forward to your book. We look forward to, once you get it ready, you let me know. You come back here or tell us how we can share it out in our little network. And I would be glad to learn more about the journeys of these stories. And thank you.
I won't be bashful. Right? So I turned down a literary agent to publish it so that I can own it, right?
Okay.
In with this quote. It's kind of interesting, two black men having this conversation. I'm going to end with a quote of a white woman, Brene Brown, right? Okay. Who says in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, oof, owning your story and loving yourself in the process is the bravest thing you will ever do, right? And so getting this out, and there's some parts of this in the book, like, you sure you want to be this vulnerable, Shawn? Right? And I know that it's going to help and heal others, right? So own it, and I look forward to part 2 of the podcast,
man.
Because I kind of get a sense that you are bringing us to a close. No. All right, Shawn, it's time to end this.
Oh no, I can talk to you forever. I'm thankful. I'm so appreciative of your time, and I think everything you just taught me in this podcast was what I've been needing to learn, and lessons that are still, as I really want to go back and listen to it again, I'm probably going to catch things I didn't catch. But thank you. I got like 3 pages of notes right here, trying to write without pretending like I'm not writing, but I felt it, and I appreciate you. So thank you for that.
So I'm looking forward to the fruitful future we both have, right, and what we're gonna do together.
Beautiful, brother. Thank you so much. Have a great one. Have a great day.
And,
yes, brother.
We'll see you once this nation opens up and we're able to travel.
Yes, sir. You better believe it.
Look forward to being in space with you in person.
Me as well. Thank you, brother. All right.
Love you, man.
Love you too. If what you heard today you enjoyed, if you've listened to this and you found something inspiring, please like and subscribe to this podcast. That's the best way for someone to find this podcast, maybe like you did. Please tell someone about it. If you know, listen to some of our previous episodes, and if one of them rings out to you, please share it with somebody you know. We also invite people to join us in a face-to-face where they come together with another person to make a mask and talk about that mask together. There's short conversations, about 20, 30 minutes. So if that's something that's interesting to you, please send us a message, send us in the comments below, let us know that you're interested in that. And we look forward to you joining the movement of the Million Mask Movement. And check out our new shirt. I don't know if you can see it, but this is our new shirt, the Million Mask Movement. And so we'll have these soon available, but we look forward to you being a part of the movement and supporting our work. Please consider supporting the work that we do in Ever Forward and in the work that we do in the Million Mask Movement to let people around the world realize that they're not alone. Thank you.